Good evening, this is BelGeode, and we are back with some more Microsoft Flight Simulator. And yes, it is no longer a preview. The flight sim has now been out, let's say about 2 weeks, thereabouts. And we actually just got our first mini patch today that hopefully will sort out a lot of the installation issues that some people have been having. So, for our first video with the officially released Microsoft Flight Simulator, I wanted to take us to two custom sceneries, and those sceneries are by the venerable Orbx. First off, let me give a special shout out to Orbx for the review versions of both of these sceneries that we're going to be checking out tonight. And then the second thing that we're adding to the mix here, we're also going to be using the first official add-on aircraft for Microsoft Flight Simulator. And that is the one provided by Carenado, the CT-182T Skylane. So, as you can see on Mother Earth, we are currently centered around North America, just shy of Canada. And we're going to be zooming in a moment to check out our flight plan for the day. But first, I've got to teach you something. So let's go back to the main menu. All right, so I want to show you a couple of quick things that we'll be factoring into today's mission. First and foremost, let's go over to options, and we're going to go to general. And today we're going to be playing around in the I think it's a sound settings, if I'm not too mistaken. Yes, it is. It is. Okay. So what I want to call your attention to is this guy right here, the fifth from the top. It says text-to-speech settings. Now, typically, when you have this set up, it will say Azure. Let me just switch it over there. You'll notice that. It says Azure. Now, what I have done in this particular instance is I've actually set it to Windows Offline. Now, what does that do? You may have noticed that in all the preview videos, I was actually flying around with a female co-pilot. However, one of my first complaints that I had was the fact that her voice was actually a male voice. So with this thing set to Windows Offline, what I can do is I can set my PC to use its own text-to-speech voice. And in my case, I have it set to Zera Pro. Now, there are other voices that you can get, and of course other languages, but I haven't really checked to see if you can install all of those other languages in the speech packs and have your pilot or co-pilot sound like those voices. But I do know it works with Zera Pro, so as of now, I actually have a female-sounding co-pilot to match the female co-pilot that I actually have inside the aircraft, who you can only see from the exterior views, by the way. All right, but there's a catch with that. Let's apply and save. We'll get out of here, and we're going to go to the marketplace this time. Now, in the marketplace, this is where I actually purchased the Carenado aircraft. Notice I didn't give them a shout out in the beginning. That's because I did not get a review copy. I actually purchased it. And if you are interested in it, what you will do is you will click on that, and you will notice that the little page comes up. So in mine, of course, it already says owned. I've already given it a rating, 4 out of 5 stars. I'll explain why I gave it that rating once we actually hop in the plane and go flying. And you'll notice here that it says go to Content Manager. If I did not own this, it would give me the little thing where I can actually purchase it. And this is probably one of the easiest ways to purchase add-ons for a sim that I've ever seen. If you purchased the official simulator itself through Microsoft Store, I can't speak for Steam or any of the others, but I know for a fact with the Microsoft Store, generally it'll save your purchase information. It'll save your billing information, whatever credit card it was that you used. And it'll automatically access that for whenever you're purchasing add-ons. So you'll notice that the description is there, and of course it gives you all the various little screenshots that Carenado's using to advertise their aircraft, and there's some more stuff on the bottom as well that you can take a look at. Now, once you actually have this thing purchased, of course, yours will change and it'll say go to Content Manager. And when you go to Content Manager, you're going to see the list of everything that you have for the flight sim. Incidentally, if any of these do not say up to date, like if they say you can install, you can't actually install it. In fact, if I decided that I did not want a particular aircraft, I can click on the left-hand side. Let's try the Diamond, for example. And it will allow me at the bottom there to delete it. So I'm kind of feeling a little froggy. I might delete all of the airliners since I'm never really going to fly them, but we'll leave them be for right now. What we're looking for here is the actual Carenado aircraft, and there it is. You'll see CT-182D Skylane by Carenado. If I did not have it installed, if I just purchased it, then it will give me the option here to go ahead and install it. And then, of course, if I decided down the road that I no longer wanted it, I can click on the left-hand side and delete it as I showed you earlier. But we definitely do not want to delete it. We want to keep it. So let's go back to the home page, and we'll go back to our world map, and we'll click on the Skylane. So there it is in the lineup. You can see it there in between all of the other aircraft that I have. And we also have liveries available. Now, this is, I guess, a little error of Carenado's. It's all the same livery. They didn't make separate pictures for each livery, so you got to kind of guess as to which color it is that you got. But I happen to know that the one that we've selected is going to be a beige looking aircraft, so that's what we're going to see today. And of course, I've done my usual registration code for North America, which is November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo. Incidentally, you can add whatever you want in here. You could even change your call sign and flight number. I know I've showed that before, but it's come up a couple of times on Facebook and places like that, so I figure it's probably worth looking at again. Same story with weights and balances. By default, Carenado has numbers in there. You can change that to whatever you want. Same thing with gas. Speaking of which, let's give ourselves a little bit more gas for this route. And also failures. We can select failures on or failures off. I don't believe you can currently set random failures, but hopefully that'll be something that's coming soon. Alright, so before we get to the flight plan really quick, just to remind you, I'm set to live players, live traffic, which will also give me live weather. And as you can see, this is today's date, and this is the current time in the Pacific Northwest. Okay, finally, the flight route. I know it's a long intro here. You know me, I'm notorious for talking a lot here. Alright, so this is where we are. You can see Seattle, Tacoma, right there. And you can even see Renton Airport, where Microsoft had the media event that I went to last year, September. You can see the close proximity to the airport. It really wasn't that long of a drive. Where we're going, however, is over here, Tacoma Narrows, and we're going to be starting on the ramp. We're going to take off to the south. You can see the wind. It says it's blowing out of the south, but there's really no wind, so I don't know if they're still going to route us to the south, but we're going to pick that anyway. And we're going to hop by these waypoints, Nice and Emerald, on our way up to our cruise altitude of 5,500 feet. And then we're going to take a north at Yeti, and we are even going to try and see if we can find and fly over Friday Harbor. I'm sure a lot of you remember Friday Harbor. We'll discuss that once we get in the aircraft. And then we're going to head over to Orcas Island, which is going to be our destination for the day. So it looks like we're going to need to land towards the south, which is fine. I love coming in over the water. And we're going to park ourselves at the southern side of the airport. So that's the plan, man. Not a bad little route. Looks like our in-flight time is going to be roughly around 40 or so minutes. So we should do pretty well with that. And without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into our chariot for the day and go flying. All right, and welcome folks to Tacoma Narrows Airport, ICAO code Kilo Tango India Whiskey. And as you can see, this is definitely an Orbx airport. It's definitely got that Orbx touch with things that you can't find in other more default airport scenery. And then, of course, there's stuff like that, the little van there, which actually is a default scenery object. But yeah, this is really cool. This is one of the first airports that Orbx has released for the new flight sim, and as you can see, it is really looking good. My favorite part of this airport is, of course, the little hub right there with a little redhead on her bike, or it looks like she's flying off of her bike. That's kind of cool. I love that. And take a look at this bird here. This is, of course, the Carenado 182. Let's fly around for a second here. I didn't change any of my settings for my Xbox controller, so things might be moving a little quickly. Now, one thing that you'll notice, since it is typical Carenado, everything looks absolutely gorgeous. That is pretty much their hallmark. What we're aiming to find out today is whether or not it's actually going to fly just as well as it looks. And I'm getting a little bit of stutters here and there. I don't know if that is because of the sim itself, because of the new update, or if it's because we're running an Orbx airport, or maybe it's because we have an add-on aircraft. Hopefully it won't be too much of a detriment. One of the first things you're going to notice, though, with the Orbx aircraft, which is actually something I do not like, take a look at our pilots here. Even though they are animated, they're the same pilots that have always been in the Carenado aircraft. I kind of hope that they would have adopted the new system that Microsoft is currently using for the pilot models. And it's going to sound kind of weird with the young kid on the right there. At least I think it's a young kid. Maybe it's a girl. Is it a girl? I don't know. Hold on. Let me get my camera around here. Just bear with me 1 second. Yeah, I think it's a young guy. So, that's going to make our co-pilot sound a little bit strange, since our co-pilot voice is now changed over to female. But I promise you, once we get back into the default aircraft, or if we take a look at any other add-on aircraft that do not use their own pilot models, it'll all work out better. But for now, you'll at least get to hear a nice feminine voice. Alright, now, let me get you to one of the other really cool things, which I don't know if I can do this from the outside. It might seem like, kind of a small complaint, but these doors will actually open. The real question is, will they open from the outside, which I don't think they will. So we'll have to go to the inside and check it out here. Alright, so we're inside, and as promised, one door opening. Look at that. Look at that. We can even open the windows. And even though it is a very small thing, it came to the forefront when I realized that none of the default GA aircraft, at least, I know that the airliners do have doors that open, but the GA aircraft, you can't do this. You can't open the doors like this. Now, you may wonder, well, why does that even matter? Well, think about the fact that VR is coming, and anybody who watches this channel should know that my channel is primarily a VR channel. So that's just the thing, really. Once VR comes, if we have the capability to actually walk around the aircraft and do a quote-unquote virtual walk-around, it kind of helps our immersion to have the door open. But then the other really cool thing that goes with that is the fact that when the door is open, the sounds of the aircraft are actually different from when the door is closed. And the same thing for the windows, too. Now, that is, of course, nothing new to Carenado. They've always done their stuff like that. But it's those little things that count. Alright, speaking of which, let's go ahead and see if we can get this bird started, because we do have somewhat of a long flight ahead of us. So the sooner we get this thing up in the air, the better. So we get rid of the yoke as usual. We'll check all our instruments. Fuel tank selector is on both. Now it's on cutoff. And let's see if we can get it back up to both here. I suppose I could probably just use a scroll wheel. That'd be easier. Alright, so everything's good there. And we can get our battery and alternator on. There we go. There's the typical noises that we're used to hearing in a Cessna. The first thing you're going to notice is with this particular aircraft, it does not have the synthetic vision. I believe that is a Carenado thing. I don't believe they've ever added synthetic vision to any of their aircraft. But again, kind of curious because they could have used the G1000 that comes default and really no one would have really known the difference. But for those of you who actually don't like the synthetic vision, and there are a few of you out there, you'll be happy to know this doesn't have it. Alright, let me set up my CDI really quick here. Okay, let's get our nav lights on, we'll get our beacon lights on, we'll get our circuit breaker lights, and standby indicator, pedestal, all of that good jazz here. Now I'm deliberately leaving the door open because I want to show you the difference in sound, but just be forewarned, it will get a little bit loud in here. Get our prop pitch to full, get our mixture to rich, and we'll turn on a fuel pump and pump the throttle for a second here. There we go. We'll give it 2 pumps. This thing hasn't been started in a while. Turn the fuel pump off. The fuel pump is very noisy. You'll even hear it in the outside of the aircraft. Hopefully that won't be an issue. Alright, but we're just about ready for an engine start, so let's get our magnetos on. And we can actually put our head out the door and shout, "Clear prop!" Now we can get her started. And of course, she's not going to start. Why? Because I'm on camera. That's why. Alright, let's try it again. Clear prop. Okay, got a good start that time, and we'll get our avionics up. So we're good to go, and as promised, yeah, it's pretty loud. You do notice that. It is pretty loud, so let's go ahead and close the door. Notice it's a little bit quieter, however, we still have the window open, so we're going to want to close that. There we go, much better. Wow, what a night and day difference. So if we take a look at the interior of this aircraft here, if I can get past the seat belts, you'll notice there's not much to it. There's some seats in the back there. You know, your typical Cessna fare, but of course everything is done beautifully. Carenado blends in flawlessly with the default aircraft because honestly, I believe they're on the same quality level. So again, the real test is going to be flying this thing to see how well that works. Alright, let me get everything set up here. So PFD, we want to show our winds. We'll set to option 3. 1 knot. 227, 1 knot. Okay, so we're still taking off to the south. That works for me. And we are on 1200 for our squawk code. We'll leave it on standby right now. Get our taxi lights on. And we should probably contact the tower. See if we can get clearance for takeoff here. I am noticing that I'm idling really low here, so let's pull it up to about 1,000 RPMs. Should have done that the moment I got in the aircraft. Now, I did not notice any checklist with this. If we open up the checklist menu, and I will have to look to the left, of course, because I can't see it since I'm in the poor man's VR. But yeah, there's nothing there. While we're at it, we'll check our co-pilot, and we'll set up our co-pilot to manage the comms. We're probably going to have to get the ball rolling. First, let me do the quick shortcut to change our weather. Okay, barometer is set to 30.05, so we're good to go there. And I believe we probably also want to set our runway heading to the south. We'll set it to 180 and adjust accordingly. Almost. Oh, there we go. Got it. Okay, so let's call the tower, get our clearance to takeoff, and we can get this party started. Okay, so we want to depart. Well, technically, we're going to be going north. We'll just say we're departing straight out.
Ground November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo with Yankee request taxi for takeoff departing straight out. November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo taxi to then hold short of runway 17 via taxiway. Contact tower on 118.5 when ready.
Okay, so it's actually runway 17.
Hold short runway 17 via taxiway Alpha Golf Bravo.
Not a problem. We'll go ahead and change that really quick here. We'll set it to 170. I don't know the actual magnetic heading of this runway, but 170 should be pretty close to the ballpark. Alright, but we just got clearance to taxi, and I noticed that this aircraft sits a little bit high, so that's going to be interesting looking over the dash. We can, however, always use the shortcut, which is the spacebar key by default. I have it bound to one of my hat switches, which will bump us up in altitude. Of course, it also puts my head really close to the ceiling. You'll also notice that we've got oxygen there. We can actually use that if we were going over 10,000 feet or 12,000 feet. We will not be. We're only going up to 5,500, so we should be good. Alright, but it looks like everything else is pretty much set with the exception of our cruise out, so we'll set that up really quick. We want 5,500 right there. Okay, and I would say we are just about good to taxi to runway 17, which is going to be over in that direction, just past that truck that is conveniently decided to block the taxiway. So we'll go to the outside view and we'll get this started. Okay, this is our turnoff here. And I do notice that we are taxiing a little fast, so I gotta kind of ride the brakes here. Otherwise, we are gonna go all over the place. And that is not good. That is not good at all. Especially since I'm sitting a little higher than usual. I can't actually see out the windows unless I put the view back down to the bottom. We'll kind of alternate. For takeoff, I definitely want to be able to see over the nose. So we'll keep it like this for the time being, and then we'll put it back to the regular view once we're actually climbing and on autopilot. Okay, but this is the area that we are going to need to park and get our takeoff clearance. So we'll just check to make sure there's no traffic. There does not appear to be. And we pull the mixture back here so we don't foul the spark plugs. Unfortunately, A2A Simulations is not in just yet, so their AccuFeel with the ability to foul the spark plugs is not a thing just yet in this sim. But still, it's good to get into the habit of doing it the right way. Alright, right about here should be good. Now you may be wondering why I parked here. That's because we are going to do our quick magneto check. So let's go ahead and get everything up to snuff here. I'm trying to remember if it's 1900 or 2100 that we should have this thing set to. I'm going to set it to 2100. Brakes still seem to be holding. Alright, mag check. So let's go with left mag. Yep, we definitely have a drop. Let's put it back up. Wait for it to go up to 2100. Yes, it did. Let's go right mag. We're experiencing the same drop. This is fine. And back to both. Let's do our prop RPM. Okay, we're good to go. And lastly, our mixture. Okay, everything is good. So we'll put her back down to idle, around 1,000. Now you are going to notice this aircraft is considerably louder than the default aircraft, but we should be able to live with that. Let's get our taxi lights off. Make sure we got our landing lights on, taxi lights off. Let's get our strobe on. There we go. And we should also get our pitot heat on while we're at it. We can put on a fuel pump. I'm going to forego that because that is incredibly noisy. It's distractingly noisy. So, Carenado, if you're watching, you might want to do something about that. It seems a little too loud than I would remember being in this aircraft in real life. Alright, but we're just about set, so let's have our lovely co-pilot contact the tower. And we want clearance.
Tower November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo ready for departing straight out at runway 17.
November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo cleared for takeoff runway 17 straight out, departure approved.
Alright, cool beans.
Cleared for takeoff runway 17 Alpha Golf Bravo.
Okay, so one thing that you will notice there is the fact that we actually got a different voice for the ATC. That is exactly why I put this thing to Windows offline, because it actually does that, and I find it pretty cool. There's actually multiple voices in there, both male and female, so this is a good thing. We're doing our traffic check. I don't see anything there, and I don't see anything on this side, so we're pretty much good to go. Let's go ahead and take the active, and we will get out of here. Let me put my booster seat back on here. We'll go to the outside view to take the active. Okay, and we are just about set, so you know what it's time for, folks. Brakes down, throttles up, and it's going to get really loud in here. Brakes off, and here we go. I don't know if I set the trim. It looks like it's in takeoff trim right now, so we should be good. Looking for 55. Here we go, right there. Woo! And we're up. We are up. I'm loving this. Okay, let's trim us up a little bit here. Looks like we do have a slight bit of a crosswind here. We're going to continue on runway heading for a little bit, and then we'll make our right-hand turn. Look at that beautiful suburb. Wow, that is awesome. That is awesome. All right, let's go ahead and engage our autopilot now. Okay. We'll wait to see what the aircraft does. All right, I am going to need to get our vertical speed up here. Now, you'll notice that the autopilot is set differently on this thing here. So we're going to hit arm, and we're going to hit the vertical speed up. So there we go. We're set to 300. Let's get our flaps up, by the way. seem to be kind of all over the place. That's one thing that I've noticed about the autopilot. It tends to overcorrect a lot, and I don't think this is necessarily a Carenado complaint. I've noticed that with just about all the aircraft. Let's get a couple more feet per minute here. 500, 600, you know what, let's go for 700 for our initial climb out. Alright, there we go. So pretty soon our co-pilot is going to be getting us cleared for the flight following. In the meantime, you can see some of that lovely ground fog that is notorious for this neck of the woods. And it looks like we finally reached our first waypoint. So we're going to be turning a little bit to the north here. And we are also going to go to the outside view. Okay, so we just got our clearance for flight following, and the first thing we're going to want to do is get out of SeaTac's airspace. So that is what we're working on now. That is exactly why I chose this particular flight plan. I wanted to get out of Seattle's way quickly. So you'll see that it's going to take us out of this airspace. We're going to skirt a few other airspaces here, but overall we're basically just going to try and avoid civilization as much as possible. We should be able to get to about 5,500 feet, which should also put us right above those clouds, if my weather brief was in fact correct. It looks like we are just about at 3,000 right now, so 2,500 feet should do the trick. And of course, we are going to need to lean out our mixture a little bit, so let's do that now. RPM's way high. Pull the power back a bit. There we go. Okay, we should be good with that. We're at 2,400. If we wanted to, we could actually roll the prop pitch back to 91%. So now we are just about at 2,300, which should be good for a climb, I should say. Unfortunately, I'm not doing this by the numbers, even though Carenado does have the numbers in their manual for this. And I would highly recommend that you refer to that, since this is just basically a first look and it's not an aircraft that I've been flying a lot often. I really haven't exactly done everything by the numbers today. But this will at least give you an idea as to how this thing flies, which is the whole point of this video anyway. I'm going to lose a couple of feet per minute here, so let's drop that down. 500 feet per minute. That should work. That'll also increase our speed. Wow, that is really loud. I'm glad my co-pilot has better ears than I do. Okay. 30.03, let's change that. Okay, good deal. Alright, so this is the main leg of our course here. We're just passing the Emerald waypoint. So as you can see, we've got some pretty impressive low-level clouds in front of us. Unfortunately, that means we probably won't be able to see Seattle, which is off to that side. Let me change my view. Yeah, you really can't see much of Seattle, but honestly, This is pretty normal for an average day in Seattle, so I'm kind of not really surprised here. Alright, but the aircraft is doing well. It looks like everything is trimmed out nicely. You can see our little trim wheel is slowly moving as needs be. We can actually open up the cowl flaps in this, so let me do that really quick here. Try to cool off the engine. We'll keep it at 40% and we'll keep monitoring the engine gauges just to make sure that everything is still in the green. We've got plenty of gas, so we don't need to worry about that. We are lean on our mixture and our RPM's looking good, stable around 2290. Perfect. All right, so we've got SeaTac airspace off to the right. You'll see those weird looking blue shapes there. That's pretty much the area for Seattle Tacoma. So we've carefully avoided their airspace. Let's go outside again and see if we can actually see the airport and surrounding areas. I'll fly us over there with the drone camera. Okay, so we are just at our cruise altitude of 5,500, and those clouds up ahead are looking like they want to ruin my VFR flight. So we may need to change our altitude again. Let's go ahead and turn off the landing lights because I neglected to do that earlier. We'll keep the pitot heat on because that we may need, especially if we're going to go into moisture conditions, as cold as it can be up here. Let me adjust our altitude really quick here. Let's bring it up another couple thousand feet. So we've got the VS on, and we'll set it once again for 500 feet per minute. I just want to make sure that we actually get over these clouds. And actually, let me make it 700 feet per minute here. We've got the speed, so we can definitely do it. Looks like my GPS is actually updated, so you can see KC on the right as well as KRNT, which is Renton, and BFI, Boeing Field. We're really not going to see them today, folks, so I'm afraid I don't have any sightseeing of downtown Seattle and all the various airports for you. Unless, of course, it does happen to clear up. We seem to be a little too far off to really take in the wonders that are the Seattle region. However, if you're interested, there are other YouTubers that have posted videos of Seattle. The first two that come to mind are my good buddies Mr. NovaWing24 as well as Mr. Frugal Sim. Granted, both of their videos are preview version videos, so they've been up for a little while, since before this thing released. But I would highly recommend that you check them out if you want to get an up-close and personal look at the Seattle area. As for us, we're going to continue heading to where no man has flown before. I say that, but I know better. Pretty sure everybody has flown this area because, let's face it, this is the most beautiful part of the U.S. in my opinion. I'm sure there's been many a Piper Cub and Cessna that have taken to the skies around this area, especially with that impressive wall of mountains off to the west there. Alright, so we are going to fast forward time here. I intend to take us to just before we reach our next waypoint, which, as you can see, is Yeti. And when we come back, we will be out of the major airspace there, and we will be just about ready to make the turn over Puget Sound and head towards Orcas Island. So, one more time to the outside view, and then we'll skip forward in time. Okay, so we are a little bit further ahead, and as you can see, we've got some rather imposing mountains ahead of me. I'm debating whether or not I'm going to need to gain in altitude, or if we should be able to pass by Yeti without my having to change our altitude. We're currently at 7,500. I think I want to err on the side of caution, so let's go ahead and get our altitude up another 200, or excuse me, 2,000. So 9,500, we're almost up to oxygen levels. And we'll set this once again to 700 feet per minute. I would much rather be safe than sorry when it comes to mountains, because let's face it, even though crashes are not modeled in the sim, I still have a big problem with becoming a smear on the side of a mountain, even virtually. But at least you can get a better look at just how awesome the ortho photo was converted. Okay, what's going on here? Oh.
Seattle Center, November 70, Alpha Golf Bravo, 7,900 feet.
November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo, Seattle Center, continuous plan. Altimeter tree 0.04.
Alright, let's change our altimeter, 30.04. We're already at 8,000 feet, and yep, those peaks are still looking a little imposing there. We got some more airspeed going. I actually had our manifold pressure down to about 22, but we're obviously going to need to increase it a little bit for this climb. That way the aircraft shouldn't have to trim itself so much, just to kind of keep on speed here. Alright, so we're closing in on 9,000. It looks like we may actually pass over these mountains without any issue. You can see some of the textures are not as vibrant as some of the others, but it looks like that's because everything is loading up real time. So the mountains that are a little further away don't look nearly as good as the ones that are currently right in front of us here. Let's kind of check it out from the outside here. Just making sure everything looks good, and yes it does. Alright, let's go to the outside view again. looks like we made it safely over the mountains, and we are now headed towards our first waypoint before we actually come down, which should be pretty close to Friday Harbor. So now that I know that we're clear of the mountains, let's begin our descent here. We'll bring it down to, where did we have it before? About 5,500? We'll bring it down only about 2,000 feet here. So 8,000, 7,500. Go ahead and arm. And we'll go down. Okay, so 400 feet per minute should be fine. I'm actually going to pull our power back a little bit here, so we'll get it back down to about 22 on the manifold pressure. And there we go. We are officially beginning our turn to our next waypoint, which, if we check the flight plan, looks like Munvi. Okay, that is our next waypoint. And it is actually right over Friday Harbor, so that'll be cool. It's been a long time since I've seen Friday Harbor. Those of you who are FSX veterans will definitely remember Friday Harbor. That is the area that it put you when you first started out in the sim. And even though Microsoft didn't really give it a whole heck of a lot of special treatment like I thought they might have, just to kind of adhere to tradition, from what I hear, it still does look pretty good, considering the fact that the rest of the sim also looks pretty good. So we'll be checking that out once we get a little bit closer. We'll go back out to the drone camera and we'll just kind of fly around here as we watch the autopilot make its auto corrections to get us back on target. Looks like we still have the winds coming out of the southwest at about 3 knots. Really doesn't seem like much. I kind of expected the breeze to be a little bit higher up here, but then I have noticed that within the last couple of weeks that the sim has been out, the real weather has not been entirely accurate. We did have a couple of hurricanes that came through, and the winds were definitely off on that. Now, mind you, in Microsoft and Asobo's defense, they really did not say that this thing could model hurricanes well. But when it comes to things like winds aloft and whatnot, I definitely expect it to do a good job at that. Although I did not check the weather using the typical sources that we would use, resources for pilots, if you will. So I don't know 100% if this is accurate. I just know what it's telling us right now, which is wind coming out of 225 at 3 knots. Pretty calm up here, which I guess I should be okay with that, considering the fact that we are still using the VR headset and the poor man's VR. Even though I don't get airsick, it is a little bit annoying when we've got a lot of turbulence bumping us up and down, and I can't hit the buttons on the G1000 just right. Speaking of which, let's drop our altitude or vertical speed a little here. There we go. 700 feet per minute. We'll go ahead and pull the power all the way back. Manifold pressure at 18 should be good to go. And looks like we are just about to get over the sound, so we will go back to the outside view and check out some of the scenery below us. And then we'll come back in and continue our descent to Friday Harbor and eventually Orcas Island. Alright, so we made it to 7,500 feet, and we're still going to want to come down, so we're actually going to see if we can get below the clouds. I'm going to set us up for about 3,000-ish. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll set it for about 3,000 feet. Or actually, you know what? Let's really get into the approach altitudes here. So about 2,000 should be fine. Set our VS again, and I believe we had it set to 700 feet per minute descent. So once again, we'll pull the power back. And there we go. Let me peek over the top here. Okay, so at this rate of descent, we should be able to get over these clouds and then under the next set of clouds. So somewhere down there is Orcas Island. I want to say, let's see, Friday Harbor should be directly in our path, so right about there. And Orcas Island is a little bit to the right, so I would think it is right about there. Of course, we really can't see it all that well because, well, clouds, but we'll deal with it. Alright, but for now, we are going to make sure that we have a nice sprightly descent. You can see some AI aircraft there. I'm pretty sure they're probably higher up than we are. I don't have visual on anything, and I don't believe that they're close enough to actually be a factor for us. So we're going to ignore them for right now. Let's do another quick look outside, and then we'll come back in, and once we get a little bit closer to Friday Harbor, we will check it out. According to Yield G1000, it looks like we are getting close to Friday Harbor, so you can see the little hook in the land there, that little peninsula. And Friday Harbor is a little further to the north. Let's zoom in the GPS here real quick. Okay, yeah, it is right where that curve happens, directly ahead, where it kind of curves off to the right and becomes a bigger portion of land. Cool, so we're actually going to fly past the airport, and actually you could see the airport. I think I can see the runway right there. That is too cool. Yep, sure enough, that is good old Friday Harbor. Now I do know that Orbx also has Friday Harbor. That was one of the airports that they gave their extra loving touch to. They have not told me as to whether or not they plan on bringing a new version of Friday Harbor into the sim, or if we're going to have to be content with the default Friday Harbor. But as soon as I know, you will know. And provided, of course, that they do provide me with a review copy of it, I will be more than happy to show it off to you at that point in time. But since we're getting kind of close to the coastline here, let me put my view back down. Kind of peer over the top there. And once again, we are going to go to the outside view. I'm actually going to speed up time just a little bit here. And that way we can get a lovely cinematic view of Friday Harbor as we fly over it. And as you can see, we're almost down to our pattern altitude of 2,000 feet. So hopefully by the time we get to Friday Harbor, we should be right where we need to be as far as altitude goes. Okay, so that was Friday Harbor, and I have to admit that actually looked pretty decent. Not as impressive as I expected to see, but considering the fact that the last time that we really saw Friday Harbor in a default state was in FSX, I'd say this is still a massive improvement over what we had back then. Alright, but we are beginning our approach into Orcas Island. As you can see, that is Orcas Island right there. You can see it there on the map. So we're on the western point of the island right now. The airport itself is smack dab in the center of that little isthmus of land, right about there. So we're going to be passing by this mountain. Hopefully I've left us enough altitude to work with here. I think we should be fine. And then we will turn around and begin our approach. And I've deliberately added all the waypoints to the approach to help us along with our descent. So hopefully, if we have our power settings correct and our trim correct and everything, we should have a quite smooth landing into Orcas. But before I do anything else, I think I need to get our little co-pilot off duty here. So we'll turn off the managing of comms. And we will turn on the comms. Oop, a little bit of a stutter there. I'm not quite sure what caused that. We'll cancel flight following.
Speed approach Alpha Golf Bravo. Cancel flight following.
Alpha Golf Bravo with the approach cancellation received.
Okay.
200.
Knew that was coming. Alright, so we are sparking 1200. We need nearest airport list. This is a Unicom airport, so we will have to announce our intentions. Alright, we want a runway for landing. We're looking for runway 16, and we're going to tell them we're doing a full stop landing. And let's announce our position.
Oscar Romeo Sierra traffic November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo 6 miles southwest 2,000 feet inbound to land runway 16.
Okay, well, this is going to get really interesting. This is looking like a close encounter with the mountain kind here. Let me put myself back to the booster seat position. Ah, we are fine. We're totally going to miss it. Alright, let's pull the power back a little bit here. So we'll dump it down to about 22 inches on manifold pressure. We're not quite ready for flaps yet, but as soon as I begin our actual approach into the airport, which incidentally you should be able to see up ahead, right about there, then at that point in time, I will go ahead and set everything up for landing. Alright, but once again, let's go back to the outside view and check out this amazing scenery. And then I'll tell you a little bit more about Orbx's stamp on this scenery. Okay, so there you can see Orcas Island, and real quick before we set ourselves up for approach, the way that Orbx did this airport, they only did the airport grounds, but it is important to note that the airport grounds extend to that little area that's right above my co-pilot seat there. That is a sloping taxiway that includes a bunch of hangars. And there's even a marina, which you will also see right above my co-pilot seat right now. All the boats in the marina are modeled as well, so really cool stuff. Alright, but it is time for us to prepare to land, so let's go ahead and pull the power back. Get us into range of flap speeds, and we will set up our landing lights. I'll leave the fuel pump off because, as I mentioned earlier, it is rather noisy. Check our barometric setting, 30.06. We actually could have called the ATIS or AWAS for that. Let's get our flaps down 1. let it do its thing. Get our mixture to full. We should have done that before. And she's going to trim ourselves up. I'm thinking 70 is where we want to keep it. It may give us another notch of flaps here. We should be just about ready for our turn to finals. So let's wait for it to do its thing. And we will just watch outside and make sure that the aircraft is still flying as well as it should. Okay, so yeah, we are going to need to correct. As you can see, we're a bit high. So I'm actually going to take it off of our altitude hold right now. And I should just take it off of autopilot altogether. Let me move my seat here. Okay, the autopilot is currently off. And we are way too high for this approach. Should have chosen a waypoint a little further out. But, you know what we could do? Let's go ahead and fly around the airport, and then we'll bring her in. So let's do that right now. Let's actually bring her down to a nice and manageable altitude. We'll go to the outside view for a moment here. We'll fly around the airport, and then we'll bring her home. Alright, so you got a pretty good look at the airport, and we're currently on our downwind leg, so let's start doing our announcements here.
Oscar Romeo Sierra traffic November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo is on downwind runway 16.
We'll keep that up for a moment here. Let's get flaps 2, and of course we need to trim for speed. We want to keep it roughly around 70 knots. Okay, there we go. Just about at 1,000. I'm going to go back out to that first waypoint that we were at, Zodku. So let's tell them we are on base.
Kilo Oscar Romeo Sierra traffic November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo is on base runway 16.
Alright, so we do have flaps 2 set up. Be announcing finals shortly. Let me just get us into position here. We're just shy of 1,000 feet, and we still have a little ways to go for this turnaround. Ah, there we go. okay, I can work with this, so let's tell them that we are on final.
Oscar Romeo Sierra traffic November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo is on final runway 16 to land.
And we'll chop the power, so that way we'll get our descent on glide slope. Now the thing is, with the seat being so high, I don't know if that's going to mess up my impression of what the glide slope ought to be. And as you can see, we are coming down a little hot here. So let me pull the power back just a touch here. Quick check with the outside. It does look like we are on glide slope. Alright, now we're a little high, so we can bring her down. Do have a good bit of crosswind. Well, actually not much. It's only 2 knots. We really shouldn't be crabbing that much. But here we are, right at the runway threshold. And we'll try to get her on the center line here. Whew! And we're down! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Orcas Airport in Washington State. And up on the right there, you'll see the sloping taxiway that I was mentioning earlier. We'll take a look at it when we do our credits roll. But yeah, out of all the airports that Orbx has debuted for this sim, this one right here is my absolute favorite so far. And we will, of course, be taking a look at other Orbx airports in the United States. However, that will be a video for another time. Let's go ahead and taxi to our parking spot, and we will consider this episode done. And look at that, we've even got a nifty little fire station. Now that Orbx did include, so really good job by Orbx. It's those little details that really matter. Wow. We won't comment on the cars stuck inside of each other. I don't think that's an Orbx thing. Alright, but right about here is our parking spot, so we'll get the parking brakes on. And we are pretty much done. Wow, what an incredible journey. I have to admit, I really enjoyed that. That was cool. Okay, but now that we're here at our parking spot, I would like to thank you all for watching. As always, this has been BelGeode. I have been flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is now released, and as of the time of this video going live, it has been about 2 weeks since it's been in everyone's hands. So I sincerely hope that you have been enjoying it. I know it has not been perfect at all. However, I really think this is a great starting place for the sim to be in, and it can really only get better from here. Once again, huge thank you, shout out to Orbx for the review copies of both of these sceneries that I've been showing you today. And I guess I'd give a special thank you to Carenado for making this aircraft, even though I did purchase it, which is fine. I have no problems purchasing stuff. But yeah, not too shabby. I think they did a pretty decent job on this aircraft, and I gotta give it high marks. It flies the way I would expect it to fly, given what we have with the default aircraft. So, pretty good stuff. Alright, but that will just about do it for me, so thank you again for watching. And if you enjoy what you have seen, please feel free to give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. I will catch you at another time with another Flight somewhere in the world. And keep an eye out for those shorts that I always put up that'll teach you little things you may not already know about Microsoft Flight Simulator. Bear in mind the information within is always subject to change, as this sim, even though it is released, is still very much a work in progress with a lot more good stuff down the road. Alrighty folks, that'll do it for me. Thank you again, and I'll catch you soon. Ciao!